Ach, Succca, my clothes in this store. I'm really sorry, I just can't get out. I'm really sorry, my clothes in this store. Kick the pillow. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. So, Succca, my clothes in this store. I'm really sorry, I just can't get out. Hello, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's well. Today is a shorter staff, but still plenty to learn. I just not sure how to Shabbos might fall a little bit behind, but okay. We're up to Daf Tesvav Amud Aleph, top line. The Mishnah says as follows: Tikro she'eino le'ma'azivo. A roof that has no cement, with no line. What happened was somebody made a roof. He hasn't finished building his house, and now he wants to change the room into a sukkah. There are two main problems. Problem number one is when he made the roof, he had no intention for sukkahs. He had making a roof, a normal room, and then he changed his mind, he's making for sukkahs. The second problem is he's going to be using boards. I learned yesterday that boards is a problem if they're more than 4 tvachim. So now we have a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rameya regarding a machlokes b'Shammai and b'Hillel. That is what we have. Rabbi Yehuda says, b'Shammai require two things to make it kosher. You loosen and you take one out between every board. That means you loosen every board and lift it up a tiny bit, and every second board you take away and you put kosher srach in between. The simple explanation is very straightforward. Is that problem number one is you didn't put it l'shem mitzvah. So for that, all you need to do is loosen, put them down, loosen, do that. Just pick it up, shake each one, and then you put it back l'shem mitzvah. But the second problem is that the boards themselves are not kosher because they're too wide. So for that, you take one out from every second and you put inside schach kosher. So therefore, the fact that it was not done in Shem mitzvah, you've loosened them all. The fact that it's not schach kosher, you've taken away 50% and you've added 50% schach kosher. Disagree and they say mefakvek oinotelachs time. They still say one or the other is good enough. Rameir says that Beishamai and Beisilil never argued about this. Noitel achas in time, you take one in between each two. You don't need to loosen any. If you remember, we had the machlokes of Yehuda as to whether boards are kosher or not. So it's very straightforward. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he holds that boards are okay. Since they're okay, so therefore, he holds that according to Beis Hillel, all you need to do is loosen them. Why do you have to loosen them? Because the boards themselves are kosher. The problem is only that you never put it in a shem mitzvah. But for that, it's enough to loosen them. Rameir says, no, I hold that the boards are no good. Since the boards are no good, the only way you're going to make it kosher is by taking 50% of the boards away and then putting back another 50% of the boards. Says the Gemara, that the problem is that when you made the 8, you didn't make it l'shem mitzvahs, it's ta'asivim also. If you loosen it over the ma'isa, that means according to good nine of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, B'sila say you've got a choice either or. Either you loosen them all. By loosening them all, they're no longer ta'asivim also because you're doing l'shem mitzvah. Or you take away 50% and you make it schach kosher 50%, that's also kosher. What's the swab Beishamai? If the problem is ta'asivim also, you just do one or the other. That's just loosen it or take away 50%. If you don't like the boards, so loosening them is not enough. Take away 50% and put in 50% schach kosher. That means it is the word. Let's just see the Gemara's answer. Even though you loosen it, in the time and if you take one, it's good. If not, not. Meaning like this. They still hold that there's nothing wrong with the actual boards. The only problem is that when you put the boards there originally, you did it not for sukkahs, you did it to build your house. So all you have to do is loosen them all and you're fine. Come along Beis Shammai and they say that's not good enough. Why is that not good enough? Because by loosening them all, you're still putting them back in place. Put them back in place, you're using boards. That is Shittas Rabbi Yehuda, boards are no good. If they're no good, so therefore you're going to be stuck. So therefore what you have to do is, you have to, Shittas Beis Shammai boards are no good. Since it goes Beis Shammai, boards are no good. So therefore you have to take away 50% of the boards, and then when you've left 50% of schach kosher, that will be okay. But it comes out that according to Beis Shammai, you don't need to loosen any. The main thing you do is put in schach kosher. Because according to Beis Hillel, you can either put in 50% schach kosher and take away 50%, or you can loosen all the boards. According to Beis Shammai, loosening the boards won't be good because you still got boards there. You have to put in 50% schach kosher. Let's examine the sefer. Where it says just take 50% away, but don't loosen. That's exactly Beis Shammai. That is how we just explained Beis Shammai. And it says, the Beis Shammai never argued. According to Rameir, they never argued, and everybody agrees that boards are no good. And since everybody agrees boards are no good, you have to take away 50% of the boards and put in there 50% schach kosher. As we mentioned yesterday. What's the problem with boards? The problem with boards is it looks too much like a normal roof. So Meir holds that's a problem. Yehuda holds it's not a problem. So in this Mishnah, that's the Machlokes right yesterday when they allowed to use boards. And now in this Mishnah, Machlokes, what did Beis Hillel say? According to Rabbi Yehuda, Beis Hillel said that boards are okay. According to Rabbi Meir, Beis Hillel said boards are no good. But essentially that's the same argument. Because since we passed like Beis Hillel always against Beis Shammai. So when the Meir says that according to Beis Hillel, boards are okay, what he's saying is that this is Shittas Beis Hillel always. And what is and according to Meir, he says no, the Beis Hillel said boards are no good. Says more, they've already argued about it. There's now Mesach in the son of Rabbi Yehuda of Meir im Oisa. As more Chibabo Mabichan Veshim the son of Shupnos Kinon Shugzeras Kelim Nogubo. The Gemara now changes the entire understanding that we had yesterday of that Mishnah. When we learned that Mishnah, the Gemara there talked about the fact that you've got boards, and boards are a problem because it looks too much like a normal ceiling. Now the Gemara is saying, no, that's the discussion in our Mishnah. But the previous Mishnah's discussion was about a completely different topic. It was talking about boards that have been made very smooth with a pointed edge, so that they look a bit like a keli. They look like a keli. They look like posts which people use to make a fence, or people use to build a house. And the problem of the previous Mishnah has nothing to do with that it looks like a roof. The problem is because it looks like a keli. And as we've said many times, a keli is mekabel tumah, and since mekabel tumah, it's possible schach. Says the Gemara, we mentioned there are two kinds of arrows or spears. Those which are male and those which are female. The male ones, they jut out and you put on a metal piece which slots onto the pointed end of the spear. The female one has a hollow inside the spear and you push in the metal piece into the female spear. And the Gemara there said that if male ones are okay, female ones are no good. The reason being, because the female ones are like a keli, the male ones are not a keli. And the more explained that what is the chiddush? The chiddush is we don't make a gzera from one to the other. Now we're coming out that over here we're saying that the previous Mishnah, what was the discussion? The discussion was by boards that should have been shaped into a keli if they're kosher or not. And we said that according to a Meir comes out they're no good. And the halacha is we pass like a Meir big gzera. Any gzera that a Meir comes up with, we do pass it. Which would come out that a board that looks like a keli would be awesome. If that's the case, that's a question of Rabbi Yehuda that said that you're allowed to use male spears. What was his logic that we do make a gzera from male spears to female spears? If that's the case, we should make a gzera from wooden boards that look like a keli to other kelim. And the fact is, of Meir holds that you do. So this would be a kasha with the Rav again. Rabbi Yehuda just like Rabbi Yehuda says, we do not make a gzera from this one kind of spear to another, so too we should make an gzera from one kind of board to another. And yet, Meir holds we do. The whole machlokes is because it looks too much like a roof. If that's the case, both Mishnayos are talking about exactly the same question. Why did they argue twice? Answer more, Seif Rabbi Yehuda. Again, in the previous Mishnah, we had an argument of Yehuda and Rameir regarding somebody who wants to use boards which look like a roof as kosher schach. Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's okay. Rameir says it's no good. Why does Rameir say it's no good? He says it looks like a roof. Came along Rabbi Yehuda to Rameir and he said to him, that which you said that it looks too much like a roof, you're right. But it's like Beis Shammai say that, not Beis Hillel. So this Mishnah is actually Rabbi Yehuda supporting himself from Shittas Beis Hillel. Again, Rabbi Yehuda said you're allowed to use boards. Rameir says you're not allowed to use boards. Came along Rabbi Yehuda to Rameir and said to him, you think you're not allowed to use boards because it looks like a roof. That is only Shittas Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel don't agree with it. The Rameir, of course, as for this some sticker looks like roof. High swallow Beis Shammai utisnu. Beis Hillel gozim Beis Hillel don't hold of it. And they hold no that they did. Everybody holds the boards. So basically, it's the same machlokes as the previous Mishnah. That Rameir holds that boards are no good. Rabbi Yehuda holds boards are okay. Rabbi Yehuda says to Rameir that logic of yours that boards are no good. It's Shittas Beis Shammai. And the Rameir argues with him and says to him, no, everybody agrees with that. Says, well, Nichel Rav machlokes v'sheish and Abba. To me, is exer sticker. Rabbi Yehuda less exer sticker. According to Shmuel, that says that any board which is 4 tefachim wide is always no good. So then our Mishnah goes according to everybody. That means our Mishnah should be forbidden according to Shammai and according to Yisroel, according to Rabbi and according to Rameir. And we see that Mishnah like that. Sefer b'may pligi. And it's what we betulei tikra can be pligi. Masav abot levochi, masav abot levochi levochi. That means over here we're going, according to Shmuel, everybody agrees that a board which is 4 tefachim wide is no good. Why is a board which is 4 tefachim wide no good? It looks too much like a roof. If that's the case, in our Mishnah, these boards are no good. Comes along the Gemara says a very interesting chiddush, that the boards are no good until you do something to them. Once you've done something to them, the boards become okay. Why would that be? What's the problem of using boards? If you use boards, people may say to them, if you can use boards, you can use a normal roof, and they won't bother building a sukkah. But if you shake the boards, if you loosen them, that's a reminder that boards themselves are no good. And therefore, we allow you to use the boards after. Meaning like this, in the Hamil of the Gemara understood that if boards are no good, they're forever no good, because at the end of the day, they're boards. Or if you just said that boards are no good. The other Gemara says, no, boards are no good only as long as you haven't done something to them. Once you've done something to them, that proves that your intention is that you think, you remember that boards are no good, then you can use the boards afterwards. And now the whole machlokes is, what do you have to do to the boards that it should be good? That means, according to Shmuel, everybody agrees that our Mishnah is talking about wide boards and they're forbidden. But the answer, the reason why it's permitted is because you're going to do something to them. And the machlokes is, what can you do to them to make it okay? Next Mishnah, because the person uses metal spits. Metal spits are no good for schach for 2 reasons. One is it didn't grow in the ground, and second of all, it's bekabel tumah. Oy baruch is a or with pieces of a bed boards, means the bed frame. If there's 50% schach kosher, means there's as much space between the schach possible between each other, then it's kosher. Because you fill it up with schach kosher, that's okay. A chodesh b'kodesh, person digs into a haystack, last is sukkah, to make for himself a sukkah. In a sukkah, it's not a sukkah. So there's 2 halachas in our Mishnah. One halach in our Mishnah is if you've got 50% schach posel, and the other 50% is schach kosher, it's okay. And the second halach in the Mishnah is that if you dig in the haystack, it's no good. Says the Gemara, it should be a kash no of Yisroel. The Itma. Paul's going with this in Eruvin. Halacha is that if the majority of a mechitza, majority of a circumference of a mechitza, of a partition is broken down, it's not a mechitza. If the majority is standing, it is a mechitza. And we had a machlokes, what happens if it's exactly 50-50? And the Gemara says, a machlokes amaroim, a papa oma mutter, but the Rishon also. But the Rishon says it's also that you have to have a majority standing to be considered standing. In our Mishnah, how much schach kosher is only 50%, and our Mishnah says it's okay. Is a raya that 50% is as good as 100%. And it's a kasha from the Rav Yisroel that says that you have to have more than 50%. What happens is you've got metal spits, and you say, let's say you've got the entire roof is 100 metal spits, and that covers the whole roof. The Mishnah says if you take out 50, that means you take out one from between each one, you take out every second one, it is kosher. So now you've only got 50% schach kosher. The answer is, says the Gemara, that when you put metal pieces inside, it's impossible to make it that they should be exactly flush against each other, because they would never fit, they would scrape against each other. So you always have to have a bit of space between every metal spit. So when you take away 50% metal spits, not only have you taken away 50% of the metal spits that are there, you've also got the space between every metal spit. So in fact, you've actually got about 55% air. And in that 55% air, you put schach kosher. So it's not 50%, it's more than 50%. Top of this, one moment, Beis. Now the Gemara disagrees. The Gemara says, no, it is possible to make it exactly 50%. And if it's exactly 50%, according to the Shosh, we're no good. No, we're talking about a situation where you intentionally made sure there's a little bit more schach kosher than schach basel. Even if you don't. If they were put lengthways, the metal spits, you put the schach kosher widthways. If the metal spits were put widthways, you put the schach kosher lengthways. That means you do it in the opposite direction of the schach, which is the metal schach, which is there. What do you gain? Thereby you gain that you can put much more schach kosher. And Rashi says that what you do is, let's say you've got 50 metal spits lengthways. So widthways, you put 51 lulav leaves, let's say, each lulav leaf is kosher. So now there's more schach kosher than schach basel. But we hold them in our toes, bottle b'roiv. Once it's bottle, so you've got yourself a kosher sukkah. You're not allowed to use the boards of the bed. He's not allowed to use pieces of the bed. Now, a bed is mekabel tumah. Why is bed mekabel tumah? Because it's a keli. But once it's broken into pieces, you might have said it shouldn't be mekabel tumah. That's the next discussion. Are you allowed to make schach out of broken pieces of keli? Do you say it was mekabel tumah, it's no good? Or do you say, but now it's broken, since it's broken, it's not mekabel tumah? If you take worn out piece of clothes, let's say you've got one, or you've got linen grew in the ground. So what happens is you wait for it, you made clothes out of it, you can't use it for schach. Why can't you use it for schach? But if you tear it into pieces, and now you've got small pieces which can't be mekabel tumah, so that's still no good. Why is it no good? Because since it was mekabel tumah, so therefore it is, Chazal said that you shouldn't use it. But Lashon Rashi is kivudima afagav the hashtag mekabel tumah kivudima keli also, since they come from a keli goes above. Says the Gemara, you go via from our Mishnah, that's no good. That's what no good. Oh, hold on, the Mishnah which says they're not allowed to use a broken bed, it's not talking about a bed broken into small pieces. It's talking about a bed which is broken into half. Either it's broken lengthways or widthways. And either way, you've got two legs of the bed plus one board. So either you've got the long board of the bed plus two legs, or the wide part of the bed. There's the part where it's the end of the bed with two legs. Says the Gemara. It says, well, we'll talk about when you've still got part of the bed. It's not a broken piece of the bed, you've got a little piece of the bed. Hey, I hold it tonight. Top of Tezan Mudalef. Mita metamas chavila mutaras chavila de Rabbi. Rabbi holds unless the bed is completely whole, it doesn't become tummy. If you've got a broken bed, it will not become tummy. So too, when you want to make it tahor, you have to be metai. You have to dip the entire bed in one go. When Mashiach comes, we will have beds that are tummy, because any bed that a niddah sleeps on is automatically tummy. So then we'll have to dip the entire bed in one go into the mikvah. No. Even pieces can become tummy. And even pieces can become tummy. Mind you, and then we'll ask the question, how can it be that a piece of a bed should become tummy? It's only a fraction piece of the bed. We're talking about where you use a long piece of the bed with two legs, or the wide piece of bed with two legs. It's still not useful for anything. To lean it against the wall. or the mace of a lion to sit on it, or mishdi ashli and to throw ropes across. That means you can find a use for half a bed by leaning it against another bed. I'm going to show pictures. I hope that the pictures become clear. It's good to see the pictures. Yeah, here's half a bed, which is leaning against the wall, and therefore you've got it. Here's the long piece with the two legs. There's a wide piece with two legs. The point is, you've got the bed, and what happens is the bed can still be used. Since the bed can still be used, therefore it is a kosher sukkah. Therefore it is mekabel tumah. Since it can still be used, it's mekabel tumah, and since it can still be mekabel tumah, that's why you can't use it for schach. Again, according to, we had now two opinions. We had Shittas of Chanon Shittas of Ami is that anything which was once a keli, you cannot use. Why? Because since it was once a keli, so therefore, even if now it's not a keli, you can't use it for schach. The Gemara says that from our mission, it's not a raya, because our Mishnah could be talking about a situation where the bit of the bed is still user-friendly. Still, it's since possible to be used, therefore it's become tumah. Then we'll analyze this halacha. Gufa. If you use the worn-out pieces of the clothes, psula. What's considered worn-out? Even if it's less than 3 fingers by 3 fingers. The Mishnah in Kelim tells us that anything which is smaller than 3 fingers by 3 fingers is so small that even a poor man won't use it. A rich man will certainly not use it. Even a poor man, once a piece of cloth is less than 3 fingers by 3 fingers, he'll throw it in the bin. Even though it's not usable for wealthy people or for poor people, nevertheless, it is no good. It's no good for a sukkah. A mat made out of rubber or out of smoothened piece of rods of wood, Shiur, even if it's less than the shear, you can't use it for schach. Even if it's broken into pieces, you can't use it for schach, because originally it was a keli. A mat of reeds, if it's being mesachim, was made for schach ilatu. Ketana in mesachim was small enough ilatu. You can't be mesachach. That means like this. Big mats in the olden days were made for sukkah. Small ones made for sleeping. So, according to Tanei Kama, those which were made for sleeping are no good. Those made for sukkah, okay. Rabbi Lezer says none of them are good, and you're not allowed to use any mats. One should be aware that nowadays, almost all mats are made for schach, because most people nowadays don't sleep on mats, they sleep on mattresses. One has to be careful though. Sometimes there have been on the market mats that have been shipped across from China, which were made by Chinese workers, and some of them were made not for the specific purpose of schach, and they were made because people in different parts of China use them for beds, and therefore they're no good. And therefore, a person should buy mats. When the person buys these roll-up mats, one should get a hechsher on it. Because without a hechsher, one doesn't know what the mat was made for. If the mat was made to sleep on, then it's possible for sukkah schach, and you can never use it. I want to get to the Mishnah. If you dig into a haystack, you've got a haystack, a massive haystack. You dig into it, possible. Why is it possible? Because you never put the schach for the sake of sukkah. You dug it out, and automatically the schach. If there was like a shelf inside the haystack, and the shelf was a tefach high, by 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim wide, so you have already what's called a roof. Because anything which is a tefach high is considered a roof, like tumah. Anything which is a tefach high is considered a roof to stop tumah, to block tumah, to spread tumah if there's on the dead body is one part and something else the other part. So if there's a tefach of height by 7 by 7, so then the halacha is that you've already got epis sukkah there. So therefore the halacha is that if you now finish it off by making 10 tefachim high, it is kosher. So the Lord says, Tani nami hochi. If you dig into haystack, lastly, sukkah is a sukkah, it is a sukkah. Well, non we learned that Mishnah ain't a sukkah. And that Beis was talking about with the haystack already had a tefach high, and that's why it is good when you build as a sukkah. Some learned it as a stira. I mean, some started at the top. First there was a stira, and then he came with an answer. That's a sukkah in a sukkah. Well, Tanya is a sukkah, whereas a Mishnah which says it's not a sukkah. And the Beis says it is a sukkah. Where it's got a tefach high, it's okay. When it's not a tefach high, it's no good. So I want to summarize the main halachas that we've learned today. The main halachas are like this: that if you've got a room which is built, and after it was halfway built, you suddenly change your mind, and you decide you want to make it for sukkahs, and it's already got wooden boards on. So the problem is, those wooden boards were already made for what purpose? Not for sukkahs. They were made to live in. The halacha is you cannot use that room for sukkah unless you do one of two things. Either you take down 50% of the boards, you flip it up as chach kosher, or you loosen every board and pick it up and take it down. Pick it up and take it down, and then it's okay. That is the one halacha we learned. Another halacha we learned, that for a sukkah to be kosher, it has to have slightly more than 50% chach kosher. That means, let's say you do it lengthways, you have to make sure that there's slightly more than 50% gap between the chach kosher. So let's say, for example, you've got metal slats for your sukkah, and then afterwards you want to put wooden kosher schach. There has to be that the metal is less than 50%. Once it's less than 50%, the schach kosher, which is more than that, is mevatalit, and then it is okay. We also learned that you are not allowed to use for schach anything which is mekabel tumah, and anything that comes from something that was mekabel tumah. So let's say, for example, you've got a wooden bed, and you shred it into pieces, and now you want to put those small pieces as schach. The halacha is you cannot use it as schach. Why not? Since it came from a wooden bed, and a wooden bed is something which is mekabel tumah, the fact that now you've broken it down into pieces doesn't help. That's how we pass on. That something comes from something which is mekabel tumah, you cannot use it. We also learned any mat which was made for a bed, for a cover, for anything, you cannot use it as schach. You can only use for a schach something which was not made as a keli. The last halacha we learned is like this, and this is an interesting halacha. That if you've got a haystack which has got a shelf inside it, and the shelf is a tefach high, and is 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim big, if you dig it out and make it a 10 tefachim, it is kosher. That means even though by a haystack normally we say that if you dig it out it's possible because it's ta'asalim na'asui, here it is kosher. The reason being, before you started digging, you already had a shelf, you already had a room. Since that's the case, therefore it is already considered to be that you've already got some sort of sukkah there. So the fact that you dig it out more does not make it, so therefore you're just perfecting the sukkah. I want to talk about this for just 2 more minutes, and that is like this. Here you've got a shelf which is a tefach high 7 by 7. Now that's not a kosher sukkah. Then you're going to dig it out and make the hole bigger. The problem is, even if you make it bigger, the schach was there from the beginning. And when the schach was put on, there was no kosher sukkah. The Rishonim over here come up with a very big chiddush. That Ta'asev Le'min Osui is in a situation where the schach was put on before there was a possibility of there being any kind of sukkah. Over here, even though there was no sukkah, since it was a tefach high by 7 tefachim, it's considered a oyhan, it's called a tent. Only there's a psul that the walls are not high enough. Since the walls are not high enough, all you need to do is make the walls higher, that's okay. And they prove this by interesting halacha. Let's say you put schach on, and then you notice that your sukkah is not 10 tefachim high, it's only 9 tefachim high. So you dig in the floor of your sukkah until your sukkah now becomes 10 tefachim high. The halacha is the sukkah is kosher. The problem is, what do you mean? But when you put this schach on, it was ta'asav le'min because the sukkah wasn't yet kosher. The answer is that there was a sukkah. The only problem was that the walls were not good enough. It had the potential, it was considered an oil, it was considered a room. And therefore, that's not a problem ta'asav le'min. Ta'asav le'min is a situation where you've got no sukkah at all, then you have a problem ta'asav le'min. Okay, Mr. Shem, tomorrow we'll do the Mishnah from Design of Dark and Shash of the Faris. Any questions, please contact me. Actually, that's